Picture India, a land of ancient wonders and diverse cultures, as a vast and sprawling domain, once united under the rule of powerful empires, such as the illustrious Guptas, who ushered in a golden age of prosperity and innovation, and the reign of Harshavardhana, a period marked by stability and flourishing of the arts. But by the 6th and 7th centuries, the foundations of these mighty empires began to show cracks, and slowly they started to unravel. Central authority weakened, its grip loosening across the vast territories. And as the center faltered, local rulers, ambitious and opportunistic, seized the moment to carve out their own domains, establishing independent kingdoms. The very idea of a single supreme ruler, an emperor holding sway over all, faded into memory. It was replaced by a patchwork of ambitious kingdoms, each vying for power and influence, a fragmented landscape of competing interests. Invasions from Central Asian groups, fierce warriors like the Hunas, drained resources, destabilized the old order, and left a trail of destruction in their wake. Local chiefs, once loyal and subservient to distant emperors, bound by oaths and tradition, now boldly claimed power for themselves, asserting their independence and challenging the old hierarchies. The grand highways and intricate bureaucracies of the Guptas, once symbols of unity and efficient governance, dissolved and fell into disrepair. And people's loyalties, once directed towards a central figure, shifted to local leaders, those who could provide immediate protection and security. This wasn't a sudden collapse, a cataclysmic event that erased everything overnight, but a gradual transformation, a slow and steady erosion of the old order. It was like a mighty river splitting into many streams, each charting its own course. The so-called Dark Age was actually a time of change and creativity, a period of ferment and innovation. Decentralization allowed new ideas, art forms, and diverse ways of life to emerge and flourish in different regions. The end of the classical empires was not a full stop, a definitive conclusion to a chapter, but a pause, a brief moment of reflection before a new chapter began to unfold. Seeds of medieval India were sown in the fertile soil left behind by these fading giants, nurtured by the remnants of the past. Old certainties, the established norms and traditions, gave way to new possibilities, to uncharted territories of innovation. The political map fractured into numerous pieces, but society, resilient and adaptable, evolved and found new ways to organize itself. Local kingdoms, with their unique identities and aspirations, became the new centers of power, culture, and artistic expression. This period, often misunderstood and overlooked, set the stage for a different kind of history, a tapestry woven with diverse threads across the subcontinent. The transformation was profound, leaving an indelible mark and shaping the very essence of the India that would follow in the centuries to come. The old order faded, its grandeur slowly receding into the mists of time. But India's story, rich and complex, was just beginning anew, ready to embrace a future filled with both challenges and opportunities. As the great empires of the past began to fade into memory, their once firm grip loosened, regional kingdoms flourished across India, stepping into the power vacuum. Power shifted away from single dominant capitals to a multitude of vibrant centers, each vying for influence and control. The Chalukyas and Rashtrakutas rose to prominence in the Deccan, while the Pallavas and Pandyas held sway in the south, and the Palas established their dominion in the east. Each of these dynasties built unique cultures, fostering distinct identities and traditions. These rulers were not just warriors, leading armies and conquering territories. They were also generous patrons of art, magnificent architecture, and centers of learning, attracting scholars and fostering intellectual growth. Grand temples, rich literature, and thriving trade networks blossomed and expanded significantly under their rule, connecting regions and cultures. Fierce rivalries, such as the intense tripartite struggle for control of Kannauj, profoundly shaped the political landscape of the era. Yet, strategic alliances and intricate diplomacy were just as common a tool as warfare, used to maintain balance and secure power. Regional languages like Tamil, Kannada, and Bengali began to flourish and evolve, giving a distinct voice to burgeoning local identities and cultural expressions. This transformative era laid the very foundation for India's modern linguistic tapestry and its rich, multifaceted cultural diversity. Political fragmentation during this time was not a sign of weakness or decline. It was, in fact, a vibrant celebration of India's inherent diversity and resilience. Each region, empowered by its autonomy, developed its own unique character, distinctive art, and a strong sense of regional pride. India, at this point, now spoke in a multitude of voices, each one vibrant, creative, and contributing to the nation's rich cultural mosaic. The early medieval period, spanning from roughly the 8th to the 12th centuries, was a time of profound spiritual transformation across the Indian subcontinent. It was an era marked by evolving religious landscapes and philosophical developments. Hinduism shifted its focus from complex Vedic rituals, often performed by Brahmin priests, to the personal devotion of bhakti, emphasizing a direct and loving relationship with a chosen deity. This devotional approach made religion more accessible to all, regardless of caste or social standing, fostering a more inclusive spiritual environment. Poet saints like the Nayanas, devoted to Shiva, and the Alvars, devoted to Vishnu, composed and sang devotional hymns in local languages like Tamil, bringing the divine closer to the people through relatable and emotionally resonant expressions of faith. Philosophers like Adi Shankaracharya, a towering figure of the time, systematized and unified Hindu thought through his Advaita Vedanta philosophy, while magnificent temples, supported by royal patronage, became not only centers of worship, but also vibrant hubs of learning, art, and culture. Buddhism, meanwhile, experienced its own transformations, evolving into tantric forms with esoteric practices and a focus on ritual and symbolism. This form of Buddhism thrived particularly in eastern India under the patronage of the Pala dynasty, who were great supporters of Buddhist institutions. Renowned monastic universities like Nalanda, drawing scholars from across Asia, became global centers of knowledge, preserving and disseminating Buddhist teachings. Throughout this period, Hinduism and Buddhism deeply influenced each other, sharing philosophical ideas, artistic motifs, and religious practices, leading to a degree of syncretism. Reflecting this interconnectedness, the Buddha was even absorbed into the Hindu pantheon as one of the 10 avatars of Vishnu, symbolizing compassion and enlightenment. By the end of this era, Hinduism's vibrant bhakti movements and sophisticated philosophical schools had come to dominate much of the Indian subcontinent, shaping its cultural and spiritual identity. Meanwhile, Buddhism's primary sphere of influence gradually shifted eastward, taking root in Southeast Asia and the Himalayan regions. In essence, India's spiritual landscape became richer, more diverse, and deeply rooted in the everyday lives of its people, leaving a lasting legacy on the region's cultural and religious traditions. Temples became the heart of early medieval Indian society. More than places of worship, they were centers of culture, economy, and power. Kings and merchants built grand temples to display devotion and authority. Temples owned land, acted as banks, and provided jobs for entire communities. They stored food, supported the needy, and managed local resources. Temples were schools, theaters, and art galleries, teaching, entertaining, and inspiring. Festivals and rituals brought people together, strengthening community bonds. Temples also played political roles, resolving disputes and managing lands. In a fragmented world, temples offered stability and continuity. They preserved traditions and knowledge, anchoring society through change. The temple was the enduring heart of every community. Despite political divisions, India's economy thrived on trade. The Indian Ocean was a highway, not a barrier. Indian merchants sailed to Arabia, Africa, and Southeast Asia. Spices, textiles, and gems flowed out. Horses, silks, and porcelain came in. Ports became cosmopolitan hubs, blending cultures and ideas. Overland routes connected the interior to the coasts and beyond. Powerful merchant guilds managed trade, wielding influence like modern corporations. Trade fueled royal treasuries, funded temples, and supported armies. Kings protected and encouraged commerce, knowing prosperity depended on it. Economic integration bound the subcontinent together, even as kingdoms competed. Trade kept India dynamic, connected, and prosperous. Amidst change, Sanskrit culture, Sanskriti united India's diverse regions. Sanskrit remained the language of power, law, and high culture. Royal rituals, inscriptions, and epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata created a shared cultural framework. Rulers across India drew legitimacy from the same classical traditions. Scholars, priests, and artists moved easily between kingdoms, spreading ideas. Sanskrit epics and Puranas shaped values and stories everywhere. This common culture allowed for innovation within a stable tradition. Regional languages blossomed, but Sanskriti provided continuity. The thread of Sanskriti held India's diversity together, forging unity through culture. It was the invisible glue of Indian civilization. The early medieval period was not a dark age, but a time of creativity and transformation. Regional kingdoms, new languages, and vibrant cultures emerged, shaping modern India. The Bhakti movement and philosophical debates redefined religion and society. Temples became the heart of community life, while trade connected India to the world. Sanskriti provided a shared cultural foundation, even as diversity flourished. This era proved that unity can come from culture and commerce, not just conquest. The collapse of old empires sparked new beginnings and enduring traditions. In this Middle Age, the complex, vibrant idea of India truly took shape.